For every project, or especially for new projects, there are always risks involved, and each person or each individual will take risk differently. The perception of risk is different from each person and how they respond to that risk. So take for example, this kind of situation is kind of enjoyable for this person, but maybe too risky for others. And so the perception of risk varies for person to person or community to community. So take for example, if one wants to build the desalination plant, for example. So the desalination plant was done or was built before due to the water scarcity problem, the drought season in Sydney and in Australia, the Millennium Drought. So there are always people seeing it as not a project that is viable or is not a good project because they see risk of losing money or they don't see the need at that time, and also the displacement of people from around that area where the desalination plant will be built, or possibly the pollution it will produce in terms of the discharge from the desalination plant. So each person will see it in a different way. So people from academia, the researchers will see it as a way of a very good way for water augmentation and towards water security. Some people in the community doesn't really don't see that in the same sense. So another thing is the building of a sewage plant, for example. There will always be people who will go against that. For example, some older people perhaps, or mothers who don't see it as a need and don't believe the quality of the water that is coming from that treatment plant, or these people feel like the pollution it will create from the discharge, they don't know the quality, they don't know the process, they don't understand the process, and so they feel like the risk is too high. So when you say about risk, we also mentioned this one in our previous previous video about community acceptance for water reuse. The perception of risk there about reusing water coming from wastewater is also different, especially for mothers who are very concerned about the health of perceiving the water quality as not as good quality compared to conventional treatment processes. So for a project, there will always be opposition and there will always be some supporters as well. And the perception risk varies. That's why, because of these differences, because of the diversity of opinion and the diversity of thinking with regards to risk, we need to engage the people involved. So these people involved may be involved directly or indirectly, or maybe affected slightly, or maybe heavily affected, or have some influence on that matter. We need to have that sort of engagement in order to reduce the perception of risk, or in fact to change the way they see things with regards to a project. And in this case, our example is on your assessment about the building of the proposal of a water reuse facility, for example, in Sydney. And so these people or the community that is involved is what we call as stakeholders. They are the stakeholders that we need to engage and try to convince about the advantages and a little bit the advantages of the project and why it should push through. So stakeholder engagement is the next step for our discussion here. Before we go with our stakeholder engagement, we need to do a bit of situational analysis in order for us to reduce this risk, for example. So SWOT analysis is a tool for this one. So the SWOT stands for, and I think everybody knows about these: strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat. So this is an assessment tool that can help in determining your current position, whatever is your condition right now, before you decide on any new strategy. So if we are thinking of proposing a water reuse facility plant in Sydney, try to do a SWOT analysis by putting it into different quadrants in terms of what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats of that project before you form any strategy. And that strategy includes the community engagement as well. So this SWOT analysis helps build you on what you do well, which is the strength, to address what you're lacking, which is the weakness, and to minimize the risk and to take greatest possible advantages of chances for success, the opportunities that are presented to you. So normally this kind of situational analysis is done before decision making, the preliminary stages of decision making at the start of your planning. So what are the components of this SWOT analysis? So basically, what you can do is just make a table with four labels or four columns on strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what are the strengths? So these are the things that you are good at. So if you are proposing water reuse plan, for example, for Sydney, so you put in there what do you do well, what unique resources can you draw on, and what do others see as your strength. And if you are, one example for this is the test technology. In terms of technology wise, we have mature technology, we have a newer technology that's very efficient as well, like for example MBR, membrane bioreactor. The quality of the product of these things for potable reuse together with reverse osmosis is very high, and it's at par or even better than the standards like World Health Organization standards, for example. So you need to provide these strengths that you have about your capability of your people in that industry, or what are your strengths for provision. For example, if we are suffering from water scarcity, the strength would be to enable water security or augmentation for the conventional sources of water. So that's a strength at that point in time. So it really depends on what will be the situation. So you have to consider the current situation of Sydney and provide the strength of your project and your capability. Next one is the weaknesses. So basically this is the things that you need to have some form of support, because honesty in this side is important. You have to be honest and see and reflect exactly what are your weaknesses. So these are what are lacking in your aspect. For example, if it is you don't know exactly your selling point. So if your selling point is just the quality of water, the water quality, so how do you go about it? So you don't know exactly how you want to sell your water reuse process. So you have to be very honest in your assessment. So what could you improve? Where do you have fewer resources? If you don't have that much backing or support, financial support, that could be a big weakness for a specific project. What are others likely to see as weaknesses as well? So if you don't have, for example, other industry have full capacity of media releases, they have all the people and resources that are at their own disposal, and you don't have those, so it means it's a weakness for your own organization as well. And areas to develop are those that seen as opportunities. So these are the things that are open to you. What could you further develop? What can you take advantage of? And especially it is related to strength. So you use your strength to develop your opportunities. So these are the things that are positive things, the positive direction. For example, if you have a few competitors, there's an emerging need of your project or product, like for example, the need of alternative water process, augmentation, and this could be a good opportunity for you as well. Like for example, right now at this current moment, the opportunity for some businesses is just there's an opportunity now for the support of the government with regards to provision of some things like plastic bag or sanitizers or some toilet tissue papers like that, and retooling their business to provide these services and these products. So it means this is an opportunity for a business to take advantage on, if is just an example for what's happening now. For threats as well, threats are those things that can hinder your success. So these are something that could possibly harm you or your organization. Possibly the competitors have doing very, very good and could possibly harm you. And then what are the weaknesses that could expose you? If you don't have funding, for example, that could be a threat as well. Some of the other threats would be a negative press or media coverage. For example, we are going to talk about that later in our case study about CADS. These are Citizens Against Drinking Sewage. So these are the people who have made some releases on the media about the dangers of drinking sewage in their own opinion. Another threat probably on how the community is, the attitudes of the community towards your project. If you feel that most of the communities are against the project, that could be a threat to you. The changing regulations also and policies of the government, suddenly they don't allow the provision of reuse water, for example. That could be, that's just an example, but that could be a threat to you as well. So overall, you can do a SWOT analysis on what is happening in Sydney right now in terms of the provision of potable reuse water. So the key term is potable. The non-potable, maybe there are a few already that are using now, and so Central Park is one. There's a non-potable reuse there, but potable is still a big issue. So I want you to focus on the potable reuse specific in Sydney and try to do a SWOT analysis on those in that specific topic. So you can have also make this kind of table to see the strengths, which are usually internal of your organization, and weaknesses are external also. If I mean internal, the strengths and weaknesses are internal. Opportunities and threats are those that are not in our own accord or not in our control. So you can have this kind of table to see what opportunities we can use our strength to strengthen it and to take advantage of, and also how to deal with the threats as well using our strength. The weaknesses, what sort of we can improve our weaknesses and opportunity together, and also how can we minimize the company's weaknesses to avoid the threats identified. All right, so please try to base your SWOT analysis on these discussions here.